Then Pope St. Paul VI, he comes in what was it, 1972, if I recall correctly. And he gives this homily there in St. Peter's Square. And he says the most surprising and shocking thing you could ever imagine a pope saying. He says the smoke of, through some crevice, through some crack, the smoke of Satan has entered the Church of God. And you've all probably heard that quote already because it's extremely important. But what too few people focus on, this is why I start the very first page of chapter 1 starts with this. Too few people notice that, or I should say, too few people bother to read the remainder of what Pope Paul VI said. And he said a number of things, but what I do in the first page of chapter 1 is I zero in on what I think is perhaps the most important paragraph from that sermon, where he said, "We trust the first pagan prophet who runs to us in some newspaper, promising us the formula for true life. Doubt has entered our conscience, and it has entered through the door that should have been open to the light, science." And I'm going from memory there, so that I might have a couple words wrong. But basically, what he's warning us against is the pagan prophets of science promising the formula for true life. Now, that was 1972. Remember, the catacomb, the restrainer, is weakening so much throughout the 1960s that what do we see for the first time ever? We see the ET deception, which already had been happening in fits and starts since the Enlightenment. We see it suddenly infiltrating Rome itself. Only in the 1960s do we see this. We see belief in the galaxies filled with all alien civilizations, each of them having their own incarnation of God, making Jesus Christ basically nothing in the grand scheme of the galaxies, which is the most insidious apostasy you can imagine. Because the ET deception, it pretends, keyword, as I prove in the book, it doesn't succeed in this, but it pretends to abide by all the doctrines of the faith, even while completely undermining the entire faith itself. And Pope Paul VI gave this warning precisely when some of the biggest scientists in the world, because the ET deception the UFO deception, deeply related, formally started in 1947. We'll get to that later, maybe. But in the 1960s, we had the head, for example, the head of SETI, which is the official government search for extraterrestrial intelligence. He said, do you know what his motive? So this is so mainstream, so official, government-backed, rich, like institutional. He founded this. He started it, Dr. Frank Drake. And do you know what his motivation was? To find the key to immortality through contact with alien civilizations. This was the message that was being preached. And this is almost exactly verbatim what Pope St. Paul VI warned against, with the smoke of Satan infiltrating the Church of God.